Hi there. My name is Lauren McKeaney, and I am the CEO and founder of the PickingMe Foundation. It's the only skin picking focused nonprofit worldwide, founded in 2016 in Chicago.
Yeah, so essentially describe to everyone what skin picking is because I know it's a really like abstract concept.
Yeah, so skin picking, or it's also known as dermatillomania and as well as excoriation disorder. But basically, skin picking disorder is a mental illness known as a body focused repetitive behavior. It's related to OCD and has been in the DSM-5 since 2013. So even though people have struggled with this disorder for long periods of times, long before 2013, it's only been officially diagnosable since then. And it's really characterized by compulsive skin picking, the repeated urge to pick, pull, squeeze, um, scab, scratch at skin. And it really can show up anywhere on your body. It's just about how severe it gets and how it impacts your day to day life. And that's when you can kind of look into it being an actual disorder or a problem. And yeah, I'm
So
someone who's, oh, sorry.
no, so give a little take on how common this really is because this is not something you hear about in your daily conversations. A lot of people struggle with little habits and this isn't usually one that people like to talk about. So really, how common is this?
Yeah, so BFRBs in general and skin picking specifically is thought to affect 1 in 20 people. So it's actually really, really more common than you think. There's really just a lot of shame and stigma around admitting that you're struggling with the disorder. And that usually leads to underreporting about experiencing characterizations of the disorder. And yeah, it's kind of affected awareness and the ability for people to just share and learn and know that there's actually treatment out there.
Interesting. So what would be the treatment for someone who's going through something like this?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things to look at treatment wise. There's nothing like a medication or anything like that available currently. There does need to be some more studies done on skin picking disorder since it's only been recognized as of recently. But the best treatments that I could suggest right now would be cognitive behavioral therapy with a therapist, and that can kind of look like trying something like a skin picking log, tracking the episodes, where they're occurring, how you're feeling when you're doing them, and kind of learning more about the behavior. You can also try implementing fidget toys. So it's a little more than just using a stress ball to keep your fingers busy, but really trying to notice where are the areas where you maybe are scanning and starting to pick. Maybe it's when you're doing work on your computer, or schoolwork on your computer. So maybe you set something there that you always have at your computer to keep your fingers busy and off your body. So kind of making your environment workable with the disorder. uh, and
Okay.
also, really changing your environment, being willing to try things like keeping the lights dim to maybe avoid triggers. If you're very triggered by seeing areas to pick at, or maybe even avoiding mirrors altogether, just for a little bit, just kind of not going in to investigate any skin imperfections and seeing if that can kind of tame the ingrained behavior a bit.
Interesting. Interesting. So why do you think that this is something that nobody really likes to talk about? Right? Because, everyone struggles with a lot of other habits. Why is this one so like, you know, iffy, especially when you said 1 in 20, which is about 5%, right? If 5% of people are struggling with this, you'd expect for there to be a lot bigger outreach for it.
Yeah, completely agreed. I would say one of the things that contributes to that would be uh, the misunderstanding that this disorder is an act of self-harm. And I think a lot of people don't want to describe that they are in fact, damaging themselves. They are hurting themselves, scarring themselves. I mean, I am polka dotted head to toe in scars. And I think I didn't talk about it or, share about where they were coming from because, I was often accused of self-harming and I didn't even know what that really meant. And as I've kind of developed this foundation and this community a bit more, what we've come to kind of say in separating the two, self-harm and skin picking, is that in self-harm, the goal is really more about to feel and to feel something, often to feel pain, Whereas in skin picking, the goal is really about accomplishment. It's about completion. It's about fixing that area. And so I think the more that we can take on looking at skin picking like that, maybe it could help people talk about it more.
Interesting. So tell everybody about your personal story. What exactly did you go through that was so, that actually got you into this?
Sure, sure, yes. My story, gosh, I have been struggling with skin picking for 28 years now. Pardon me. And began when I was about 5 or 6. That just aged me. um, and I remember picking, but there's also pictures of me in my swimsuit with all little girls lined up on the lake, and I'm just have these red sores, polka dotted all over my body. And I was that kid that had mosquito bites start in the summer, but they lasted till Christmas because I kind of just kept scratching at them. For me, I think it was a way I was regulating stimuli. So maybe if I was feeling anxious or nervous about something, my hands would kind of wander and start to pick. Or the opposite, if I was maybe bored and just laying around watching TV, my hands would kind of wander and start to pick. And that kind of became an ingrained behavior. And as I grew up, and acne and puberty provided like a plethora of options to pick at. And the behavior ingrained itself in me more. And it became a way of life, really. My parents and people around me started to notice. It became hard to not notice. There'd be blood on my clothes at school, or I'd cancel sleepovers because I was afraid I'd bleed in my friend's bed.
How
And
intense was it? Was it incredibly like often you were bleeding and things like that?
uh, it's I'd say yes, but you wouldn't know because so much we become masters of deflection with the disorder, and you really find ways to keep it under wraps, to kind of keep your skin covered, makeup, band-aids, clothing, etc. But I really was able to appear fine and flourishing in a lot of ways. But on the inside, the behavior was getting worse, and I was doing it more often, sometimes losing like 3 hours in a night, just picking in the mirror. And that actually led to the first time I started getting infections like cellulitis or abscesses, which led to hospital stays and um, IVs of antibiotics, etc. And that actually led to for the time that I contracted MRSA in the hospital, which is a life-taking bacteria, and I had the chance to almost lose my right leg.
Wow.
And that just happened from scratching a little, an area on my thigh. So it really can be a life pervasive disorder.
So, do you know about how the disorder actually works? Is it more psychological in terms of the fact, like, we experience a lot of distractions today, right? Like I'd experienced a distraction, maybe like a nervous tick that you might have skin picking. A nervous tick might be for me going on my phone, for example, or or taking a smoke of a cigarette or whatever it may be. Do you know if when you pick your skin like that, do you have the same sort of like dopamine releases in your brain like you would have when you are going on your phone or smoking or things like that, or is it a completely different system?
I think that you can say it would relate to that. I've often compared it to an addiction, to something that um, it's a cycle that you're in, that you get something up from it, it does something, and then you're absolutely deflated from doing it. And then you repeat to get
Yeah.
that feeling again. Um, and but I'd say there still needs to be more studies to officially say, but as personal experience and the way you're describing it, yeah, I can see a relation there.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it definitely seems like it could be an addiction just because of the fact that, you know, you continue it's almost like there's an unlimited amount of skin that you could pick on your body, and therefore it's like the unlimited amount of cigarettes that you could possibly smoke, and it just constantly flourishes and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So explain to me what exactly you used to do. Did you just sort of like pick at your skin, or did you sort of rub it or scratch it? What was it like for you?
Sure. So, The best way I could describe it for you would be now I talk about it in terms of focused versus scanning. Sometimes my hands would be just scanning my body, my chest, my shoulders, and I'd just be in class. I wouldn't even know I was doing it. And I might look down and all of a sudden have blood on my fingers, or a friend would tell me to stop. And um, that was kind of more scanning, not so much damage, very surface level, looking for something to level. Um, Something sticking out like a bump or something. But focused, that's kind of the one that really has done some damage for me, because focus picking is more when pass a mirror and you clock something, some perceived imperfection out of the corner of your eye, and then you are compelled to fix that area, and stuck there for hours. Cut to 3 hours later, and I'll realize I'm still there doing it because my back just gave out from hunching in the mirror. So I didn't even stop doing it. My back alerted me just that I needed to stop doing it.
Yeah.
And that's when it's really a kind of deep, focused, very scarring, damaging picking.
So you're saying it's essentially mindless too, right? Like when you're doing it, you're not really noticing that you're doing it.
Yes, and I think that's why it's a really complex disorder to understand it even still, is because it seems in one way it's so subconscious. I genuinely have times I'm, probably talking to you during this now, have scratched something off. Very well could have happened. But there
Really?
are also times where it's the opposite, where it's very intentional. It's very much, I am seeing something that I need to get rid of. And that's the compulsion part.
Okay. See, I don't know if I told you this, but I'm actually writing a book coming out this year, which is how to get rid of bad habits. It's called Breaking Bad Habits in 150 pages.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so well, thank you. So
Very
my
cool.
yeah, well, essentially sort of found a nice strategy that I found was really great at breaking bad habits. And I define habit as very, broadly. So it could be anything from an actual addiction to like, smoking and things like that, to picking your nails and things that are a little less, that are more habit like. And the solution that I came and a big part of my solution was becoming more conscious of it. So, becoming more mindful of all the things that happen and allowing yourself to sort of take control over that subconscious part of your brain. And I do agree. I think it's incredibly important to do something like that, just because whenever you do something mindful, then you're actually sort of confronting it with the part of yourself that's going to change it, right? So if anything's going to change it, it's going to be the person that's conscious, like the you part of you. But if you don't confront it and you leave it in sort of like the unconscious realm, then yeah, that's what's going to end up happening. You're going to end up leaving the unconscious, and your unconscious is going to take over.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. It reminds me in a way of how maybe I'd be unconsciously picking like on my couch or something,
Mhm.
and scanning mindlessly, and once I'd catch myself, whether my finger hit a band-aid or hit the clothing, and then I realized my hands were wandering, I'd have myself stand up, and the
Mm,
only thing in that was you know, that moment of when I'd catch my hand scanning or picking, there's immediately this feeling of like defeat, right? And of shame,
yeah.
and I'm still in the behavior. So I think I wanted to shake it up or come to or bring mindfulness in a way, me back to reality. So I just would stand up, and that kind of worked for me as a little tactic for a while. You just reminded me of that. I haven't thought about that in a bit.
Yeah. Well, did it work? Was it very successful in terms of you'd stand up and then you'd start thinking about it?
It gave me an opportunity to pause and then to choose a different behavior. So to choose to sit back down with my hands down. Did it
Hmm.
always work? No. There are times I'd stand up and then sit back down and my hand would go right back to that area it was exploring. Um,
Yeah.
but there were times, yeah, where it did allow a moment of pause and choice.